Live from Kent, this is The Late Late Show with Toby Payne-Cook and Ed Finch. And you are listening live.
Good evening. I didn't realise what time it was. Going away and the little sack Ed, who's apparently boiling the kettle. We've got what in the studio. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. Ed's in Devon. I'm in Kent. We're talking about KS3 tonight. KS3, here's CPD. Gas. Okay.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org or join in the conversation by downloading the Podbean app and following Teachers Talk Radio. Hashtag TT Radio.
Hi. Good evening,
Hello.
Ed.
Good evening.
How are you? You in the distance? Have I got to turn my microphone up? I don't know. It's not just us again. We've got Christine in the house, and we've got Lucy in the house, and we did have a naff or something in the house, but they've gone already. So they didn't like the sound.
Must have said something. Sorry if we said something offensive that early in the show. That maybe they clicked on the wrong link. How's your week been? How's your week been then, eh?
My week has been good. I feel very, very, very happy. I don't want to talk. Everyone, I think most people know. Yes, and what I don't know, they don't know. So
they don't know, but they know that you're happy, and that makes people who love you happy too, even if they don't know the exact detail of why you're happy.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I like to just say I currently don't work on Wednesdays. There you go. And so I said to my boss, my line manager, who's deputy head, that on lunch on Tuesday, I said I'm going to write you and Eddie, who's the head, a really nice letter tomorrow. I said to her, there've been times in the last few years where I might have written quite a horrible letter, but actually I'm going to write a really, really nice letter. And that's what I've done today. I've also written a long letter to my mother today. Not that she's going to read it or understand it, but I think sometimes putting words down on paper is better than just, never-ending circular conversations. And so just sort of saying that something's got to change. There. So, but that's that. That's some sort of, between now and September, I'll be on Project Mother, I think, because I won't have much time for it after that. Anyway, hopefully I'll be able to talk but completely in more detail about it all next week, because there you go. But yeah, I'm very, very happy, and it feels pretty good to be me at the moment. So I'm sure that won't last, but there we go. Yeah, there we go. What about you?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm battling on. I'm all right. Yeah, we're leaving it. We're still breathing, aren't we? We're standing up. We're all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of. I mean, we can't. We don't work for the BBC, but we can't. We probably shouldn't talk politics, but
why not?
Let's just I give a fist pump in the air for Gary Lineker. That's what I'm going to say.
Well done, Gary. Yes.
Well done, Gary. You're very distant, Ed. Your microphone's quite far from your mouth.
We don't have his audience. It's true. We don't have his audience, but we're in the same game, aren't we? Basically, we're in the same game.
We're broadcasters.
We're very, in a lot of ways. Do you know, I played Gary Lineker on stage once.
Did you?
I did, yeah. I played in a production of My Evening with Gary Lineker, which I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Written by Arthur Smith and did very well in the West End. Didn't do so well on the Amdram circuit, but we did our best. I voiced him. I voiced Gary. I didn't actually play him. We had one of the Blues football team who didn't look at all like him, but who represented him on stage because he was an actual footballer. In a production that was directed, I must be talking 1990, I'm going to say 1993, I think. Directed by Victoria Corrin of Only Connect fame.
Indeed, and married to David Mitchell fame, yes.
Yes.
So
She wasn't married to David Mitchell at the time, and
no.
No. At the time, she was just an ordinary girl who had extremely rich.
Victoria Cohen. I like Victoria Cohen. She's very, very intelligent and very, very witty. But I don't think she's a great. She's not. I don't think she's a great presenter.
No,
I don't. She's very.
Nor, and
I think she's a bit stilted. She's a bit stilted.
Yeah. I mean, I don't quite know what she's famous for, other than being the daughter of Alan Corrin. If I'm going to be entirely catty about it, but there you go.
Now, what I don't know, you see, you're more intellectual and learned than me. I should know who Alan Corrin is, but I don't know who's Alan Corrin.
Alan Corrin was at the time that she was born a very, very successful Times columnist, humorous columnist, broadcaster as well. He's sort of, he'd prop up Channel 4 panel shows, maybe do some TV.
Yes, I'm recognising the name.
Humorous column, sort of a Hunter Davies sort of a character.
Yes, okay.
Do you remember those names? Yeah, and he was very funny.
Are you broadcasting walking around your kitchen, Ed?
Yeah, I'm loading the dishwasher. Is it not helping?
I love
creating a scene.
It's just your sort of your voice is drifting in and out a little.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what happened is I said to my son, who I love more than I love life itself, I said to him, "Come on, Douglas, after we've had tea, shall we go up the pub and have a midweek freshener?" And he said, "Yes, let's do that." Yeah. And then I said, "Oh, hang on a sec, I'd forgotten. I meant to be doing the radio thing with Toby." And he was visibly disappointed. And you can't visibly disappoint your only child, can you? So I said, "All right, well, we'll as soon as we finish, we'll charge up the pub quick as we can, sink a pint, back down. I've got to be back in time for 9 o'clock because the people are sitting by their radios waiting, won't they? All of them." But I didn't clear up the tea. Is what I'm saying. I haven't put it in the dishwasher. If I'm going to put it in the dishwasher, what am I going to cook with tomorrow? I have to buy another frying pan just to make the tea.
Yeah.
So it's got to be loaded and set off, hasn't it? Well, so one of the greatest pieces of advice that was given to me by a very dear friend, she said, "Just do the dishwasher every day, even if it's not completely full. Just do it, and then you've got clean stuff in the morning." Isn't that wise? I mean, when you think about that.
That's wise. Although in this day and age, it's expensive running a dishwasher that's half full, and costly to the environment, Ed.
Yeah. Well, in only 2 more years, I shall be a lonely single man, won't I? At which point, I will just eat instant noodles, and I shan't even use the dishwasher anymore. But seeing as
sure,
let's
right.
Live it up while I've still got one,
Okay, we've got. I think we've got quite a lot to talk about. I think we should get on with our topic.
Oh my word! How professional!
Yeah, professional. So I think we should get on with our topic, and our topic this week is Key Stage 3. So that is in the UK education system. Key Stage 3, for those who don't know what it is years 7, 8, and most of 9, but 9 tends to be gobbled up into Key Stage 4 really these days by quite a lot of schools because the GCSE syllabi or specifications or curriculum or whatever you want to call them are so clunky. So that tends to sort of start in it's certainly halfway through 9. And so Key Stage 3 is really 7, 8, and into 9. It's a weird thing in the sense that it arguably, I think, children of that age, so age 11, 12, 13, perhaps turning 14, they're becoming adolescent, and some of them are very adolescent at that age. But the more early sort of adolescence and maturing quickly, going through puberty quickly, but equally it's certainly year 7 and a large chunk of 8 is pre the worst, sort of the deepest mire of adolescence. And also most children by the age of 11 and 12, in my experience, and I know my experience is not that broad, they can read, they can write, and they can do a bit of numbers stuff. And so they've got sort of basic classroom competency, and they're not sort of corrupted by the cynicism of deep adolescence and indeed adulthood for that matter. And they're sort of sponges, and if enthused, they've got some quite good learning attributes and habits. I'm speaking generally, of course, and yet it's a rather sort of unloved stage of education, I think, because you leave, for 95% of the population anyway, you leave primary school at the end of year 6, when you're 11, and then you go into a big secondary school. There are still a few middle schools around the country, and there are some independent prep schools, as the one I currently work in, which go up to the end of year 8. But in the most part, people transition from one school, a very different school, to a very different school, at the age of 11, and then. But it's not measured, is it? Key Stage 3 is not measured in the way that Key Stage 2 is, with the SATs, and in the way Key Stage 4 is with GCSEs, and indeed Key Stage 5 with BTECs or A levels or whatever. And so it's sort of, because, and in the modern world of measurement, it's rather that sort of drives education. Now, obviously, I don't believe that should be the case, but that is what happens. So Key Stage 3 ends up being, for a lot of children, I think, a rather unloved period of education. Yet the children's brains and attitudes are generally pretty open and pretty positive for learning at that age, when you could argue that 1 or 2 or 3 years later they may not be so much so. And 1 or 2, 3 years earlier, they may not actually be kind of ready to process so much information, because their reading and writing skills are not quite where they need to be.
So it should be that golden age of education, shouldn't it? It should be the absolute. It should be the heart of it. We should, my God, though, they go to big school. They've got teachers who really know their stuff. They've got some resources where they can actually, have an actual art room and an actual science lab. They can use real stuff. They're not going to be measured at the end of it, so they can really delve into it with passion. It should be just it should be the jewel in the crown. Don't you think? It should be, when you look back at your education, well, primary school was great and we had a great time, but it was mostly about reading and writing and maths, because it kind of had to be, because we had to build those tools. Yes, we did fun stuff as well, but but then we got a Key Stage 3, and oh my goodness, we just opened ourselves up to knowledge and love of knowledge and excitement before it got constrained into the exam system. That's you feel how it should be, and I bet there's schools that do it like that, and I would love to meet them.
Do it.
I'd love to do that, because it has my most acute experience of Key Stage 3 education has been watching my son go through it. I mean, he's going to take his GCSEs this year, so he's finished he's finished Key Stage 3. But it was just, I really felt that the schools were under such constraints that they had to deliver the GCSEs, that the grave temptation was to just bring that pressure forward and forward and forward, to the point where Key Stage 3 is a bit pointless, because if the end of the game is your GCSEs and you're pretty sure you're not going to do geography, just why bother? So you got kids signing out of subjects from the beginning of year 8. Really, well, I'm not going to do that at GCSE, because they know it's about the GCSE, not about the joy and the fun. So how would you do it? How would you put it back in? What would you, in your utopian system, you're saying that one of the reasons it's not I think as rich as it should be is because there isn't there isn't some sort of metric on it. You just live through it for a couple of years.
No, exactly. But I think without changing, it's virtually impossible to change it for the better without changing what happens afterwards. Without changing the GCSE system, without changing the accountability measures associated with that, and the increasing. Now, this is obviously my slightly out of kilter with perhaps many secondary teachers' view, but I think the commodification of education, if you like. So for me, in education is an abstract noun, and it is something that is foundational and should be. I don't think it should be inspirational all the time. I do think there needs to be some nuts and bolts. But what I mean is, I think education is the foundations of future interesting conversations, future competence in the world of work, future being able to engage with society on a wider thing, and understand news stories and things. And so education is the foundation of everything that happens afterwards. But yet, with the increasing onus on grades at GCSE and as a measure of school performance, it's sort of what we've done is we've commodified education in the sense that it becomes there's a product, and that's your grades at really predominantly at GCSE, and then of course A level if you're going on to select university courses, etc. And so I think, and because that's so important, and schools are measured so heavily about it, it means that the teacher's bread and butter in a secondary school is those those years 9 and 10 and 11 classes, and 10 and year 10 and 11 curriculum and specification. And I've just had Anna's my youngest, who's doing her GCSEs this year, as is Douglas. I've just had her parents' evening, and and some lovely conversations, but it really is just down to this sort of memorizing ways of answering questions, and preparing for things, and it's not open, is it? So for the vast majority of children who finish, I know I've drifted onto GCSEs and I'll come back to GCSE3, but because that's what everything is about the answering those questions properly, learning those facts, learning gaming a good grade in that exam becomes everything, and therefore, as you say, the pressure to build strong foundations for that knowledge and application of that knowledge in an exam drifts down into key stage 3, and therefore so that's the kind of pull factor from above. But also I think there's a push factor from below, which the overnight flip from class teacher in year 6, who may be an absolutely brilliant teacher who knows 30 children really, really well inside out, and is probably really excellent at teaching either maths or English, and possibly excellent at teaching both, but and they probably know quite a lot about one or two of the other foundation subjects and things. But children will, if children are maturing fast, they will be a bit bored of that one class teacher, and they'll be ready to leave primary school, but probably by the Christmas of year 6, if not the end of year 5, really. And yet then they sort of flip overnight to going from this nurturing environment, this environment with the whole child, and how they think and behave and learn in English and maths and science and French and geography or whatever. It's sort of, then that just goes to a load of different teachers who may be brilliant and lovely and caring, but their real focus is on teaching GCSE subjects, and so they're not. And those children are suddenly, thrown from a school which maybe got 100, 150, 200, 250 children in it, into a school that's got 500 or 600 or 1,000 or 100 or sometimes 2,000 children in it. And teachers who are teaching 180 children or 210 children, different children through the week. It's so that cultural shift of what the classroom is like and what the school is like from year 6 to 7 is huge, and a bit weird. So the way children learn and the way they have to conform and behave and comply, they've got a lot to learn there when they're in year 7, and so there's not much continuity of the approach to learning and style of learning from year 6 into year 7. And then you've got this drip down sort of stuff coming, and then obviously I speak about science, which is a very, very, it's a compulsory subject to GCSE. It's also very, very content heavy, and I think there's so much you could do with science in Key Stage 3 for people who aren't going to go on and become genius scientists at GCSE or A level. There's so much, and yet science, flips from being what could be quite an exciting, engaging, important life kind of skill to understand to a kind of basic level, then gets flipped into a sort of diluted foundational GCSE curriculum for future specialists. And I just think you sort of slightly kill it really. And there you go. So yeah. So I don't know what I don't know what I do. I think I probably need to let you interject, Ed, for a minute. I've got something else to say about that, and it's really about subjects. It's really about subjects. But
Yes.
I'll let you chip in now.
Well, I just noticed that our friend Rachel has just popped something up on Twitter, a little graphic from something a graphic design company are putting together for her. And using my detective skills, I'm looking at this little scrap of type that she's put up, and I think she's going to be launching her Finding My Voice project. Well, but if she's leaking the graphic, I think it might be arriving soon. So we won't spoiler it too much, but she's looking at pupil voice, and she's done lots of projects with primary age children, looking at pupil voice, how do kids actually experience their education, and how can their voices improve it. And I think she's launching that across secondary quite soon, if my detective work is correct. I can see ding and ois, and I can't think of anything else she'd be doing that would have ding and ois in it. So yeah, I think that's. But I say this because I think that those kids who go into their secondary school, they're so proud, so excited to wear their new school uniform and to walk into that building. Which, like you say, I mean, and where we live in the world, down here in Devon, I've got schools with 20 children in and less. They might be sending 2 year sixes up to the college. You know, there might be a year where they don't send any, but they're sending a couple of kids up to college, and as you say, there'll be over 1,000 children in that school, and they go up with such high hopes with their fresh faces and their fresh uniforms, and they've just learned how to tie a tie. And I think that's really precious, don't you? I think it's really precious. And so I guess, when you honour those voices, you want to say, so for these young people, it's their one crack at it, just as it is in primary, and it's their one chance to go through it. And if it's just a holding stage till we start GCSEs, it's a real. It's not just a waste of time, but it's actually a real, it's a real letdown. It's a real betrayal of trust, I think.
Yeah,
and I understand why it's yours. But this is anecdotally, my kid on his first day at big school, the tutor, trying to be helpful, said, why is it important that we really work hard and do our best now that we're a secondary school? And the children said, because it's respectful to our teachers. And he said, well, yeah, that's true, but it's not really what I was thinking. And he said, is it because we want to live up to our potential? He said, well, I guess you do want to live up to your potential, but that's not what I was thinking. So he played guess what's in the teacher's head for a bit. And they said, it's important because we need you to leave secondary school with a good set of GCSEs, and that starts today. And you can imagine saying it, can't you? And then catching yourself on. I expect he went home and he thought, oh, for heaven's sake, why did I say that? I wish I'd thought about it a bit more carefully. Because what he said to those kids is, this is about your GCSE journey, and everything else is a bit of a sideshow. And if you're really convinced you're not going to do geography, then you don't really need to pay attention in those lessons, do you?
Yeah.
I don't know what you could have said, but I think any of those first things that the kids were coming back to him was, it's because it's exciting to learn and we should be fulfilling our potential. So I think it's baked in, and I think it's baked in hard. I agree. If you don't change what GCSEs look like, you're unlikely. And it is, that. Do you remember that a few years ago now they start that erosion that you alluded to at the start of the school, that erosion of Key Stage 3 started to happen, and lots of schools went, we're going to go for a 2-year Key Stage 3 because we want to give the children another year to make sure they reach their potential in their GCSEs. And there was a side of it which is hard to argue with, because yes, we do want them to leave with really solid set of GCSEs so that they're competitive in the market. But if everybody does that, we've just created another. It's hiding to nothing. Yeah. Probably doesn't work, because just like we know in primary education that children who've got a really exciting all-round education just do better. They just do better because they know more stuff and they're more confident. They've got more experiences to lean on. That's just as relevant across your GCSE palette as it is in your Key Stage 2 reading test, or I would say it is. But Yeah, I mean, it's this thing, isn't it? To go, okay, why are we here? What we for? What's our actual core purpose? It, because making sure they've got the GCSE so they can go on and get the A's they want to, so they can go on and get the course they want to, is one thing. But gosh, it's a
It's all the trouble is
poverty-stricken
the
view of
whole thing
education,
is.
isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about this before. The whole problem is the whole thing is top down, isn't it? So it's the
Mm.
whole thing's top down. We need X amount of graduates in this subject. We need Y amount of graduates in this subject, and therefore we need that many people to study A level. And if you're going to go,
Maybe we need to campaign to bring back middle schools. Where they
yeah, well, I think middle schools. I think middle schools would be good, but I still think if you've got the same accountability system at GCSE and at A level, and that I don't think that's going to change broadly what's taught in them or how it's taught in them. But what would change, and based on the fact that I mean, essentially, my school is an independent middle school. That's what sort of prep schools are if they go up to end of year 8, and so I've done a lot of teaching with Key Stage 3 at the top of the school, and when Key Stage 3 at the top of the school, what a difference it makes, because they are whoever's at the top of the school are regarded by subliminally maybe as being the most important children in the school, because and I know that's not how it should be, but it's kind of how it sort of is by default, really. And so they do a lot more and probably achieve a lot more in a way. Going back a few years, my school and still quite a lot of prep schools had this thing called common entrance, which was awful. I thought common entrance was designed for the higher sort of ranking, the more selective public schools, the Eatons and Marlborough College and Wellington College and those sort of schools, Brighton College now, for creaming off the most academic school children. And so common entrance, and it still happens, but it's not a selection tool anymore because the way anyway. But I don't want to go off on one too much. But common entrance is really like a diluted GCSE. So they sit exams in exam halls. In science and maths, in fact, biology, chemistry, physics, and maths and history and geography and English and so forth. And I didn't like it because it was basically a 2-year course, year 7 and 8, and it used to creep down into year 6 as well. In the same way,
year 6 can do without that, can't they?
Yeah, and then so what you had is children who were 12, maybe no more than 12, revising 2 years of content for an exam from sort of now until late May, from mid March until mid May, late May, and it's just bonkers. Now that's fine for the most. The quickest minds, the people with the best memories, who are going to be the most uber academic, they're sort of academic scholars to those top ranking schools. But it's bonkers for all children, and so we've moved, as have a lot of other schools, to a more sort of baccalaureate style system, if you like, where children get assessed via a variety of means. So that could be in science, assess practical work, small research projects, and some memory test exams as well on the content. Or in drama and music, it might be role play and composition, and and you get a grade, a numerical grade in all subjects. And assessing the sort of subject specific skills as well as the subject specific knowledge, and it's just a bit more all round, and the learning, if you like, is assessed in a modular sort of way, so there's not this this ridiculous mini GCSE at the end of year 8, and which I think is better, but I have to say it's harder work. This is the problem. Once you're in an exam based system, it's much easier to teach to a test. It's much easier to teach to a specification, and to give your and to compare children on that narrow wicket is it's basically it's lazy education, if you want my opinion. It's because it's easy, it's tried and tested, and so that's that. But then I can't, without saying too much, I'm still going to be a Key Stage 3 teacher in any potential new role that I may have.
Yeah.
But
Listen. So, who was saying? One of our friends on the chat was saying, and Christine was saying, would it be better to have teachers who are dedicated to Key Stage 3 and
yeah,
actually hold them? When we hold them to account, whether through whatever appraisal system we use, hold them to account for for that stage.
I think that would be.
You
I
are
think it
creating
is.
children who are ready for GCSE because they're raring to go and hopped up with knowledge and things, but that's not the metric you hold them to. So it's one idea.
Yeah, no,
Christine
I think it's
also
a good
says that
idea.
in the school she's working in currently, she's strong sense that the year sevens feel inferior to the year 11s, which is part of what you're saying. We, as maybe as the adults working in the schools, have this sort of subliminal feeling that the oldest children are the most important in some way. Usually because they're coming up to the most high stakes formal examinations of their little lives. But yeah, if you're a year 7 in a great big school with 1,000 pupils and you walk in there and you're tiny and they're huge and they're doing proper exams and you're marking time, you are going to, unless their leadership are very clever at pupil voice and making sure that people are heard and valued, you are going to feel less important, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think that that's the other thing is that yeah. So I think if you can, I don't think maybe it shouldn't be completely segregated because of course there's great benefits to some of the facilities and resources in secondary schools. To the younger children in them in those secondary schools. But I think more or less segregating teachers into key stages is not is not a bad idea because it means those if a teacher is responsible for teaching science or drama or art or history or whatever across key stage 3, then they're going, and they're not being measured on their GCSE results, they're being measured on their progress and in imparting of enthusiasm and motivation for learning that subject. Then that's going to give the children a better experience, isn't it? Because the teachers are more invested in that stage of education. So I think that's a good thing. That's why I sent a tweet earlier on, and I think one or two people misinterpreted that I was going to have all those people whose names I've basically forwarded our tweet about this show to a few quite highbrow people on the twits. And one guy I copied in was a guy called Sir Mark Grundy, who is head of I think Shire something academy in Birmingham, and I heard him speak at Eastbourne College, which is an independent school, a 13 plus independent school, so it starts in year 9 in Eastbourne. They hosted a sort of Key Stage 3 conference, even though they don't have a Key Stage 3 themselves because they start with one. But because of this whole the way selection for senior schools has changed and the way Key Stage 3 has changed in the prep school world, and this is Sir Mark Grundy who worked in the state sector, and his school or his academies, his schools within his academy change. They have a very different model in Key Stage 3 in the sense they have like a middle school sort of model, or not even a middle school model, a sort of semi-primary model. So they will have a class teacher who is their sort of tutor who will teach them English or maths and 2 or 3 other subjects, and so they will be in one class with one teacher for about, I think in year 7, about half their week, and then the other half of the week they're off out in the art room or the science labs or the music room or the whatever, or with the specialist language teachers, etc. And then in year 8 that goes down to about a quarter of the time with this one teacher, and then
That's a
in
beautiful way of doing it,
it's a
isn't it?
beautiful way
Isn't
of
that a
doing it.
beautiful
I
way of
think it's
doing it?
really good, really
And of
good.
course, our friend James Mannion talks, doesn't he? Of course, in Fear is the Mind Killer, about the work they did in their Key Stage 3, creating the conditions for learning. Really, they did a lot of time on oracy, a lot of time doing philosophy for children, and a lot of time doing independent research and creating talks and presentations. So the children had all that confidence in their own language and their own voice and their own study skills, and that taking that actually out of curriculum, saying that's not actually about PHSE or computing or whatever. This is about learning to be ready in an
Yeah,
exciting way. And they, and it had, and your friend Mr. Grundy, presumably related to the Grundys of what's it called? What's the village in the Archers?
The Grundys, yeah, Eddie Grundy, and
Is he related to Eddie Grundy? Because if he is, I want to shake his hand.
well, yeah, because that's set around there, isn't it? Eddie Grundy is a fictional character, isn't he?
Eddie Grundy is fictional, but only if I mean, those of us who are true aficionados believe that it's all true. Of course, don't we? And the BBC fitted the entire village with microphones in the early 50s, and they've maintained it since.
I am slowly beginning.
Yes, but I'm sure he will say we do this, and it gives us better GCSE results at the end, because otherwise, people are paying money here. They want their kids to have a good experience, but they get pretty sweaty if they think they're not getting the exams. And so with the people in the Seaside Academy, or whatever it's called in that book, who are like, we're doing this because we think it gives the children the chance to become better students.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
do better.
Exactly. I've got.
Why you would do it.
I think we should probably have a break for the news. This is quite a serious show by our standards, Ed, but it's important. I think it's a nice discussion.
Well, we're
and there's some
enjoying
good
it, but
comments.
I mean, we can't last. We'll start taking a mix soon, won't we?
I think we also. I think what I suggest is that I've got something. The only thing I really want to sort of explore a bit more is a little bit about what I would do with science in Key Stage 3 if I had my way. Complete freedom, and also just to talk about the whole subject thing and how discrete subjects and how that and that's the culture we're in at the moment, which will overlap with other discussions we've had. So those are the two things I want to talk about briefly after the news, and we've got some fun music coming up, and we might disintegrate into something silly before the end of the show, who knows. But for now, everybody, it is time for the news. I think we will be about 7 minutes today, maybe slightly less than that. So be back very soon. Thank you very much.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, a leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The BBC has relaunched the 500 Words Writing Competition. The competition was first launched on Radio 2 in 2011 by its then breakfast show presenter Chris Evans. The UK-wide contest continued until 2020 with Evans' successor Zoe Ball. It will return in September and will again be backed by Queen Consort Camilla. It'll also be supported by Sir Lenny Henry. The announcement was made on Thursday the 1st of March, World Book Day, on BBC One's Breakfast News programme. BBC Breakfast presenter John Kay said, "We are delighted to be championing 500 words and look forward to stellar entries from talented, aspiring young writers." Up until 2020, the competition had received more than 1 million stories, all written by children and adding up to more than 440 million words. Judges on this year's panel will include teachers and librarians, as well as best-selling authors, which will include former Children's Laureate Mallory Blackman and Charlie Higson, author of 5 of the Young Bond novels. The grand final will feature 50 of the best entries from 2 different age categories, and it will take place on World Book Day 2024. WhatsApp messages sent by government ministers and civil servants during the height of the pandemic have been causing a stir in many circles since The Telegraph published its series of stories giving insight into a usually private world. Several teaching unions hit out at what was described as contemptible comments made in the WhatsApps by former Education Secretary Sir Gavin Williamson. In the messages, Williamson appeared to suggest that staff were looking for an excuse not to work during the pandemic. There were also comments made by former Health Secretary Matt Hancock, who referred to teaching unions as a bunch of absolute arses. Sir Gavin was seen to reply, "They really, really do just hate work." In a perhaps ill-advised series of tweets this week, Sir Gavin Williamson attempted first an apology, saying the comments were aimed at some unions and that he had the utmost respect for teachers. But many of those replying pointed out that unions are made up of teachers and that cannot be separated. They and union leaders went on to point out that teachers worked throughout the pandemic. National Education Union Joint General Secretary Mary Bousted went on to say that she hoped that the present Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, did not share the contemptuous attitude whilst the current pay dispute continues. Whilst the pay disputes continue in England, they are possibly just getting started in the Channel Island of Guernsey. NASUWT leaders on the island say that local members have voted overwhelmingly in favour of industrial action over pay and workload. According to a report in Guernsey Press, strike action was backed by 9 out of 10 voters who took part in the ballot. 57% of members voted. Teachers in Guernsey have been offered a 3-year deal with a 5% increase in 2022, a 7% increase in 2023, and an increase of 1% below inflation in 2024. Meanwhile, in Scotland, the EIS union has suspended all planned strike action after a new pay deal was offered. The 12.3% increase on the current pay rate has been welcomed by EIS leaders, who are said to be recommending its members accept the offer. The union will ballot its members on the deal, which would see teacher pay rise by £5,200 in April. Scotland's Education Secretary has welcomed the suspensions of strike action, but the NASUWT's General Secretary, Dr Patrick Roach, said the offer was paltry, and whilst it would ballot members, its campaign of strike action and action short of strikes would continue. Finally, while strike action causes disruption in schools, the Eastern Daily Press reports that some families have opted for family days out to local tourist attractions. Many of the attractions have created special offers and promotions to make the most of possible extra visitors on planned strike days. Banham Zoo and Africa Alive offered free entry for up to 3 children per paying adult. A spokesperson for the attraction said they hope to provide an educational experience for children to learn about the planet and the environment. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, this week we're going to talk about tech for well-being. We all have tech all around us, but what do you do to strike a work-life balance when technology makes you available 24/7? During the pandemic, parents having the ability to directly message or email teachers increased, and for good reason. The issue now is some schools have continued to maintain this communication. Here are a couple of ideas to let tech make your communication a little easier. First, you need to read your school's policy on replying to messages. This will outline what you're expected to do. A lot of systems have an auto response or an out-of-office reply. When you're taking a break, switching this on can send an automated message to let people know you will respond in a timely manner. Here is where you could quote the school's policy. Do not disturb is another setting you could use to stop devices notifying you between set times that you decide. You can also set this so certain people, like family and friends, can still alert you. Delayed response is a setting in a lot of email applications. If you want to create emails at unsociable times, you can set them to send at specific times, allowing you to work when you like, but not go against any timing set out in school policy. Why not tell us what you do with tech for your well-being at TT Radio Official? I'm Steve Woods, and that was 2 Minute Tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Been missing Steve. Missing him.
Been missing Steve. Yeah, it was good to have him back. Good to have him back. And that was less than 2 minutes, I think. 2 minutes.
It was less than 2 minutes.
Well.
And it was a classic. It was a classic of the genre, wasn't it?
It was.
Who knew you could schedule your emails? My word. What will they think of?
How many? I'm terrible on my personal and work emails. The ones that I don't even open because I know I don't need to open. I don't delete them, they just sort of sit there.
Sit there forever.
They just sit there clogging up. So I've got I don't know, thousands of unread messages in I've never
think about how many unread emails I've got on my personal account.
I know you get people bragging, don't you, that they've got their inbox down to like 10 messages or something.
I know, and I long for it because I think if I could get it down to 10. I might, it's possible I might stick with it. I've just opened I've got 30,174 unread.
Have you? Hang on.
Most of them
Wait.
from LinkedIn.
This is in your
This is my personal account at
in your
work.
Gmail or whatever.
I'm not saying I'm on zero at work, but I'm on very few.
Hang on.
Whereas on my personal account, flippity
Oh
doo.
no, I've got in my inbox. I've got 45,236 messages, 9,400 unread. 9,400 unread.
Oh well, I've got you. I'm way ahead of you when you
are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, but I'm bad at deleting the ones I have read that I don't need anyway. It doesn't matter really. There we go. Anyway, and so yeah, we've done Key Stage 3 quite well, but I suppose one thing
we covered it, mate. We covered it.
We've
you
covered
wanted
it.
to talk about science.
I just want briefly, yeah. I just think that there's of course the clunkier and heavier your curriculum content is, and more complex and abstract it is at GCSE and beyond, then therefore the clunkier and heavier your Key Stage 3 content needs to be. But I just think it's, and I know that we've got the kind of, and I sort of agree with her to some extent, and I know, the Daisy Christodoulou worldview, this the idea that you've got to, you've got to hook knowledge onto knowledge, and you can't really think deeply about a subject until you know an awful lot about it, and all that stuff. I get that for academics, but come on, we're not just educating academics. We're not just educating future academics, and I enjoy educating future academics very much, but equally, that some people can be late developers, and some people can become very useful thinkers as adults who aren't good in the exam system in their adolescence because they're just not invested in it. They don't have an agency. They don't, and all that sort of stuff. So I just think that what we should be doing with science at Key Stage 3 is not all just whiz bang sort of experiments and stuff, but we should do some of that. We should do some science skills, some investigations, but not just and you can do something like that. I do the science of sherbet with my year 8s, and I love doing it. I mean, they
Can I have 2 minutes on the science of sherbet, please? Because I didn't know it was interesting. Go in.
Well. So what I do is, so they get at the end of the process, they get to make. I bring in some food grade citric acid and bicarbonate of soda and icing sugar, and I put on some fresh clean A3 white paper, and I get to sort of do a bit of blending studies to get the kind of the blend, the right ratios, and then they get to make a small sample and they take it home and we do make a label for it, and it's a bit of product development. But the chemistry of it is the reaction, the physics that causes fizzing in your mouth is a reaction of a metal carbonate, sodium bicarbonate, with an acid, citric acid, and so that is a Key Stage 3 chemical reaction. You react a metal carbonate with which is a base, and with an acid, and you make a salt and you make water. But because it's a metal carbonate, you also give off carbon dioxide gas. So we study the ratio, so we can do some weight loss experiments on electronic balances to try and optimize the ratio of the ingredients, to get so that you're optimizing the reaction, because you want to react all the sodium bicarbonate because it tastes disgusting. You have a slight excess of citric acid because you want that sort of sour, tangy sort of taste. And of course, then we do a bit of solubility. So we see which one's the most soluble. Obviously, the sugar's the most soluble. And the sodium bicarb is the least soluble of the three. We dissolved a bit of dissolving and solubility. We measure the pH of the three ingredients. We do a bit of taste testing. We taste a little bit of each one and describe its taste. And what else? We look at the exothermic reaction as well. So it's quite a rare, not the exothermic, the endothermic reaction, which is when you react citric acid and sodium bicarbonate together,
and it gets
in
cold
water in solution.
It
gets colder, much colder.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Who knew
exactly.
sherbet was so exciting? There you go. You've had your 2 minutes. You've convinced me.
There you go. But things like that, because there's a lot of Key Stage 3 chemistry content in there. But also,
can I just refer you, please, though, to Maxim? No, before we go any further, Maxim says he went to a fancy dress party as a metal carbonate.
Did he?
When the host answered the door dressed as the element Na, I didn't know how to react. There you go, Maxim. A genuine laugh for that one. Well done.
Right.
Nice.
Okay.
Right, carry on.
Yeah. So, but I think with science, I think, and this is why I'm going to assume it overlaps with subjects, that I think in year 7 and 8, there should be, it should be issues-based education. So we should be looking at climate change through the lens of geography, physics, biology, chemistry, history, industrial revolution, etc. We should be looking at and so I think rather than worrying about specific subject content, in year 7 into year 8, create topic stuff, which is very against the current status quo, I know, but that's what I think we should be doing, is looking at why understanding science is really important, and look at some issues that can be accessed.
It's heretical.
Well, sorry?
It's heretical.
It's heretical.
I don't
And
know
then
that
in
you
year
dare
9,
say that. I mean, you get yourself cancelled for it.
I know, but then
I
in year
do
9,
like the sound of it.
But then in year 9, what you should do is all the subjects, all the subjects at GCSE should get the chance, before you start diving into the content of those subjects, to just basically introduce themselves over half a term. So sort of 5 or 6 weeks, 7 weeks maybe of teaching. You do, this is what chemistry is, and this is what's in the course in chemistry, and this is why you need to learn chemistry and why it's useful, and so you condense the whole GCSE course into the key bits without worrying about fully understanding every concept, but you kind of just the bigger picture. So you sort of do an introduction to the subject, and this is geography and this is history, and and then instead of, because what happens is we go straight into in Key Stage 3 or Key Stage 4, we go straight into history or geography or physics or whatever, we just don't look at the big picture enough. So you don't ever get to look at the big picture on these things unless you study them beyond school, degree level and beyond, in fact, to be honest. And I think that's sad. So I think everyone should be given a bit of an insight into the big picture. But of course, our whole education system is not set up that way. Before they're deciding what subjects to actually study at GCSE.
Well, it could do. It could happen in Key Stage 3, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know what the current Ofsted regime will say about it, but here's the thing: when there was that great attrition, when lots and lots of schools said no, we're going to have a 2-year Key Stage 3 because we want the extra year for the GCSE courses, Ofsted said, I think quite explicitly, I can't remember through what medium, I think whether it was a speech or whether it was some guidance that was issued to schools, they said, no, we frown on this. This is not the idea. We want children to have the full, rich experience of Key Stage 3. And an awful lot of the secondary sector just collectively shrugged and said, well, do you know what? We're going to do the best we can do for the kids we've got, and we think that is getting them the best GCSEs. So mark us down for it if you want to. We think our parents would rather get the children things. So, and it didn't cause a massive disaster. Lots of schools, this team went in, the team said, explain what's going on. The leadership team would say, we're doing this for this reason. We think it's the best. And generally, it did not trigger people at good schools going into special measures. They were trusted to make the choices. So I reckon you could, maybe someone listening, maybe someone out there would like to commission you and me to go in there and rewrite Key Stage 3, put it all around, as you say, all about issues or all about problem-based learning. My friend Elon would like on board with that. Key Stage 3 problem-based thing, not unlike the way my friend Tina Farr approaches Key Stage 2 curriculum at her school, St Ebbs in Oxford. That's very much like each term has a big question or a big problem to solve, and they go in and it's all been very carefully planned. The knowledge is there. They can argue that they're knowledge rich because they've said, by pursuing this course of study to discover more about in order to solve this problem or answer this question, they're going to have to encounter all this knowledge along the way. In actual fact, will be very purposeful that they do.
Yeah.
So it's not knowledge rich. What it is it's rich in narrative. It's rich in story, isn't it? Because we're doing this stuff for a reason now. We're not just remembering that, the short one is the positive side on a circuit diagram. We're doing it because we want to get it right, because we're going to build this thing which is going to solve this problem. I think year 7s, you don't stop being a child over the summer when you finished year 6 and going into year 7. Year 7s, they're 11 years old, they're 12 years old. They're kids, and they deserve a chance to learn through story and learn through play just as much as Case stage 2 do.
And year
not
8,
do.
if
I'm
year
sure there's
8,
hundreds of questions. You know,
if
they don't listen
year
to
8s
this.
haven't got, sorry, if year
No,
8s haven't got,
yeah.
if year 8s
You
haven't
go.
got
You
year,
go.
yeah, if year 8s haven't got year 9s or 10s or 11s above them, they're really young kids as well. But it's only
Yeah.
if they're surrounded by, you know, year 9s, 10s, 11s who are all, you know, vaping and exploring, you know, vaping or starting to, you know, experiment with things they know they shouldn't do, but they do because it's, you know, teenage rebellion and all that sort of stuff. Then year 8's pretty young kids too, really. I mean, they can start to look quite big. But anyway, there we go. I think we've done it.
There we
And
go.
you've got something else to say. I butted in on you. What were you saying?
No, I don't think I've got anything else to say, really. I doubt it was interesting.
Oh no,
exactly
it was.
right.
I think it's. Well, I've enjoyed talking about that, and but you know, of course, we can't. It is unloved, and I think there should be more done with it. But right now, with the funding crisis in the state sector, it's not going to be anytime soon that any revolution happens there. But you know, give it 5-10 years. Who knows? Who knows? The world could be quite different in 5 or 10 years.
It's all to play for.
It's all to play for.
I'll tell you what, while we're on this subject, just like one last tiny little punt out there.
Yeah.
I know I'm not meant to advertise, but I was very profoundly moved in a way I wasn't expecting to. Our friend, well, he's my friend, and I think our friend Howell Roberts has published his new book. It's called Botheredness. And it really talks about a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about today, which is putting narrative and adventure and problem solving and excitement back into the curriculum and finding ways that stories can take us to the places we need children to go to. It's a solid book. It's 301 pages. It's a chunker.
Whoa.
It's not like one of these little books that, you know, that you know, everybody's written a book nowadays and most of them are barely pamphlets. Or I would say Howell's book is a good solid. It would keep the door open on a windy day if you needed it to. And anyway,
that's a good title. I like that.
Botheredness. Yeah, we're bothered about this stuff because we care about it. We care about the kids, but we also actually care about the stuff that we're teaching because we think it's interesting. We think if more people have more of the interesting stuff in their heads, then the world will be a richer place, you know? So Botheredness is the book. I've got a bothered badge. Anyway, he's published a new book. It's out recently. I'm not advertising it. I'm just very proud.
No, you are. I noticed you're allowed to, I think. He's put
in a sort of half a page of acknowledgements of people who've been in some way influential on his thinking. He's got there Dave Whitaker, you know, I'm sure you know, Professor Rachel Lofthouse is in there, but also the Manic Street Preachers are on his list, and you know, people that I know like Ed Southall, but also Steven Spielberg, all sorts of people, the Beagles, the Rooks, the Maddens, StuartLee, Jason Isaacs, you know, good people.
Stuart Lee.
Anyway, I'm very proud that my name is in that list there next to my friend Darren's. So if I've had a tiny little bit of influence somewhere down the line and helped that book come out, I'm very proud of that.
Is Darren off the twits? I haven't seen him a long time on the twits.
I haven't seen much of him, but the twits has been somehow
kind of weird.
reconfigured to divide us, hasn't it? Lots of people are saying they don't see me anymore. They say, "Oh, Ed, we don't see you anymore. Are you still tweeting?" I'm like, more's the pity I am.
There's been more normal this last week, I think, than it has been for a long time. But that might be just because Fed Music Channel.
Well, there's a bit when all the links stopped working. I sent an embarrassing message to somebody saying you've got a broken link. Anyway,
right.
Never mind.
Come on then. Are we going to do a bit of a tribute to Burt Bacharach?
Well, we're going to try. I've never played it
because he died a few weeks ago, and we weren't doing shows at that time, and so I love a bit of Burt. Yes, I love it.
So this one's for you, my baby. Here we go. Raindrops keep falling on my head, and just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed, nothing seems to fit. Those raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling. So I just did some talking to the sun, and I said I didn't like the way that he got things done, sleeping on the job. Those raindrops are falling on my head.
My head keep falling.
But there's one thing I know. The blues they send to meet me won't defeat me, and it won't be long till happiness steps up to greet me. Raindrops are falling on my head, but that doesn't mean my eyes will soon be turning red. Crying's not for me, 'cause I'm never gonna stop the rain by complaining, because I'm free. Nothing's worrying me. Nothing's worrying me. Nothing's worrying me.
That is lovely, Ed. And that song, obviously from the film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance
Kid.
And my mum's favourite film, I think. I love that film. I love that scene. Catherine Ross on the bicycle with Paul Newman. And yeah, lovely scene. Or was it? Yeah, it was with Paul Newman on the bicycle, wasn't it? It was with, yeah. And the Sundance Kid was
I think,
Robert
that
Redford,
film,
And
anyway, there we go. A little bit of Burt Bacharach.
Lovely.
Very astonished I managed to get through that one.
You did
I must
well.
be better than I thought I was.
Yeah, you were good. You were good. Lovely. And
you,
I also liked the Manic Street Preachers covered that for the Help album in 1994, which was for Help was for Bosnia War Child charity. That was a good, nice cover actually. I like his voice, James Dean Bradfield's voice, the Manic Street Preachers. He's got quite a distinctive voice, hasn't he? That
he can
rasp.
Sing, he can sing. He can sing a bit. He's got a rasp, but he can sing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, my friends, it is past 10 o'clock. We should probably let these good people go to their beds.
Thank you for listening. I hope you appreciated our Key Stage 3 scholarship, everybody there. And lovely to have you with us. We I don't know what we'll talk about next week, but maybe something a little bit more frivolous or light-hearted. Who knows? Whatever comes into our mind, we'll see what happens through the week. Have a good rest of the week, everybody. Take care of yourselves.
Cheers all. Happy days.
All. Bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.